Okay, well, I'm Jim Hansen. I'm the director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies in New York City.
Okay. And what can you tell us what you've been doing this morning and who you've met this morning?
Well, I've been doing interviews related to my appearance yesterday at the Kingsnorth trial for the young people who were arrested in conjunction with stopping operations at Kingsnorth.
And why do you think that coal is becoming a huge issue in the UK, and presumably you think that it should become, the campaign to stop new coal power stations should become much greater?
Well, coal is, many people don't realize, but it's the primary source of the excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Oil and gas are the other fossil fuels, but coal is the largest one. And it's the one that we need to phase out if we're going to solve the climate problem.
You wrote to Gordon Brown saying that his decision on Kingsnorth has the potential to influence the planet. Can you explain why? And also, can you give us his response?
Well, yeah, Kingsnorth is really important because, first of all, the United Kingdom started the Industrial Revolution, and on a per capita basis is actually responsible for more CO2 in the atmosphere than any other country, with the United States and Germany very close. But these countries need to take a leadership role in solving the problem, and they could do that. We have a choice, though. We can either go back to the old, dirtiest fuel, coal, or we can move forward beyond fossil fuels to cleaner energies. And that's an extremely important decision, because eventually we're going to have to move beyond fossil fuels anyhow. The question is, are we going to leave a mess behind us that our children and grandchildren will have a very hard time dealing with? So I mean, that's a critical decision, which I would hope that the UK would help lead the world in the right direction.
And the government in the UK and also the energy companies talk a lot about carbon capture and storage, and dub this as clean coal, therefore it's okay. What's your response to the clean coal message?
If there were such a thing as clean coal, that would be fine. But in fact, the plans do not call for capturing all of the carbon dioxide, only a small fraction of it. So that's really a fig leaf. We need, on the short term, energy efficiency and renewable energies are a much better bet. You should allow the possibility of clean coal, but you should say we're not going to allow a coal plant unless you really capture the pollutants, including carbon dioxide.
And as far as I understand it, the likelihood of actually being able to capture all of the pollutants is currently, it's not proven that there is a technology able to do that currently. But also, if there were, it would be so expensive that it wouldn't really get off the ground. I mean, is that your understanding of the situation regarding capturing?
Technically, it's possible to capture the carbon dioxide and most of the other pollutants, but it will make it more expensive, and I think probably other sources of energy are likely to win out. But you can allow that as an alternative, but there should be the restriction that we won't allow it unless you really capture the pollutants.
And a lot of people in the UK and also here in Kent are incredibly worried about energy security. The government again have been really pushing the agenda of, we don't want to rely on Russian gas because that can be cut off at a whim. It's an unstable country. But in actual fact, we know that we actually import the majority of our coal from Russia, not such a well-known fact. But people are really worried because they're afraid that the lights are going to go off if we don't use fossil fuels. I mean, how can we rebut this myth?
Well, fossil fuels would not last forever anyhow. We've used half of the oil already and a good fraction of the coal. So we're going to have to find other energy sources anyhow in the long run. So why not do it sooner and get a clean atmosphere and preserve the climate?
Yeah. What else do I have? I mean, yeah. For the World Development Movement, we've been spending a lot of time engaging people, trying to engage people in the anti-coal campaign to stop Kingsnorth going ahead. As you said, it's a symbolic issue here in the UK, but also it's a very real issue, because if Kingsnorth is given the go-ahead, a string of others may also then be given the go-ahead too, and we don't want to see that. What's your message to the World Development Movement's campaigners? What would you encourage them to do or say?
Well, I think this is one of the most important issues in our lifetime, probably the most important. It's hard to see it on a day-to-day basis, but if you step back and look at the big picture, it's really extremely important. So I think it's time well spent in trying to help solve the problem.
Yeah. And just one last question. With regard to climate change, obviously we know that climate change, as I said, it's really going to affect everybody, species and humans alike. And the planet's going to change dramatically. I mean, we always make the point that it's going to hit the poorest people in the world first. I mean, could you maybe give us some examples of how climate change will be affecting the developing world in the future?
Yeah, the climate change is especially important for the world's poor, partly because the sea level rise will affect places like Bangladesh, island nations, native people, but also a large fraction of the freshwater sources. Many people depend upon fresh water that originates in glaciers in mountain regions around the world, in China, and India, and South America. If we don't bring the climate change under control, over the next several decades, those mountain glaciers will be gone, and the fresh water supplies will be greatly limited. So there are many different examples of how the regional climate impacts do especially affect the poor people.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.